Today we will be going through 8.74 and 8.75. To start out, let's just give our general, actually, let's go through the summary for 8.74 and 8.75, so graciously provided by Mr. Europe. And it's a picture. Shit's on fire, yo. And yeah, shit's on fire. Things are happening right now. But with that summary, let's go into general thoughts slash impressions that anyone has on 8.74. Basically, how you thought it, how you liked it, what you thought about it, anything like that. Go ahead and ping me if you want to speak in ACD Talks reactions comments, uh, and I'll get started. I thought this chapter was really, really good. I don't know why, but I really enjoyed the Oname, and just even if it was mostly a one chapter arc for her, basically, like we didn't learn more about her until that chapter. I thought it was a very good arc for her, and I really enjoyed um, how Lionette also was used to help Rabbit Eater in the end. And I thought the explanation for why that was possible was really well done as well. But yeah, I definitely enjoyed the chapter, and I thought it was very action packed, and it was a great kind of battle scene. And Lanray, you wanted to speak?
Yeah, I loved it too. I thought it was very twisty and turny, and it had all of the bits I love about a good action chapter of TWI. It's like you got your highs, your lows, your heroic moments, and I love that Lionette was inspired by Erin casting her boon across the world to effectively grant Rabbit Eater what should not have been his. I feel that's going to be fun to see in the future.
Absolutely. Um, Comrade Burr, you wanted to speak.
Hello, Comrade Burp here. I did very much enjoy the chapter. One particular thing that really made me happy is that for once it gave an explanation to the no other characters on the battlefield but named characters syndrome that I feel happens a lot, where like the only characters who make a difference are the ones with names. This one had like bodyguards that were unnamed but actually did things, and uh Eldavin cat like makes invisible light bridges for Tyrion and his forces to like get to the general, as opposed to them just, running through an entire army like it's nothing. And I really appreciated that. That it gave some explanation to how they got to the general, as opposed to them just, fighting their way to it. That's all.
Yeah, it was certainly a chapter. It was certainly one of the better chapters at giving us a look into like high level fights where everyone is high level rather than a bunch of lower level people trying to fight one high level person and that one high level person just dominating in a lot of ways. And so this go around uh, we saw a lot of high level individuals on both sides kind of countering each other. So that was definitely very good to see. Ashok, did you have uh, any reactions to this chapter? Any general thoughts that you wanted to share?
Yeah, really interesting battle. I like how they showed the limitations of Eldavin. Uh, that was kind of clearly explained. I initially thought he would just dominate the battle, but that was quite cleverly done. Some very emotive moments, especially when the climbing lord used that skill, I will never let you go, and the backstory behind that. I really like that. Just responding to Lanray's comment, I don't think Rabbit Eater is the Light Herald, so I'm curious what everyone else thinks about that. But yeah, very interesting chapter overall.
My thought on this whole Light Herald thing is just that he's kind of an outsider, so it would be very odd for them to actually adopt him as the Light Herald, even if it was a permanent boon, which it isn't in Lionette's case. So
I
it's
don't think that is the Light Herald boon. So
yeah,
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. So
yeah,
that I think would have to be by the king. This is just a similar skill, I think.
Yeah,
I'm not
it
sure.
definitely is, but it just like it's how they perceive it. Like they're kind of going off the thought process that this is the Light Herald boon, and it isn't. So it'll be interesting to see how it kind of is incorporated into their ranks. Okay, so Comrade Burv says, I like the never let you go skill, and I think it was set up beforehand nicely. Spanner says, a class Plant Herald. That would be. I was actually thinking, what if there's an actual plant class? Like, I don't know if that could exist, but it would be funny if it did. Maybe says, I don't really want to speak, but I just wanted to say I definitely loved the battle. It read very much like a Warhammer Total War battle plays. I've never actually read something like that, but that sounds interesting. Comrade Burv says, I don't think he would become the Light Herald. The point of him looking like one was to rally the troops. Lanray, you wanted to speak again.
Yeah, sorry, just to cover that last point, I was just going to say, I don't think he's officially the Light Herald, but I feel like he was given powers that made it look very similar to that, and on the news and everything, people in other kingdoms and that are going to see him now as Solstice Knight is the new Light Herald kind of thing, and Calanfer being so political might play on that. I didn't think he'd been given like the actual Light Herald title kind of thing.
Yeah. All right. Seems we've gotten through all of the overall thoughts for this chapter. If you guys have anything else you wanted to say, just keep typing out. But I'm going to move on to the first question we have here, which was written by myself. How did everyone like Dioname's arc? Did you enjoy her character, or should she have been more foreshadowed in the past? Uh, Additionally, I saw a lot of discussion around this in the Patreon spoilers, but did you think everyone not having knowledge of her in the past is an issue? Like, as in Nears, he said, I don't know if this was exactly him being hyperbolic or not, but he did say that he didn't know anything about her and he was adding her to his list of most dangerous beings. So is that something you have an issue with, that she was not talked about a lot in the past, or is it fine with you? Ashok, I'll let you read off these responses this time around, but I'll just answer myself real fast to begin with. But as I said previously, Dioname's arc was great to me, and I definitely enjoyed her character a lot because I personally really like that kind of hidden, disguised power type of thing. And I think one of the reasons why so many people didn't know about her is that although Alien Damas is a very big power in Terrandria, they haven't really made a bunch of waves um, across the world. Like they've been expanding quickly in the last 200 years, but they also aren't like a big player on the world stage, so to say. So their best general not being known like exactly how powerful she is kind of makes sense to me because they've been keeping her more low key and not showing her off so much. But Ashok, go ahead and read off all these.
So just a few comments on the Light Herald discussion. So Spanner says the Light Herald is more the armor than anything else, but Rabbits is an actual Herald of Lights in theory. Vesco says, I mean, for all we know, the Light Herald skill or skills might be the ones he got, but both were temporary. True as well. And then Lanray wanted to say something.
Yeah, on the Tsunami. I can't say her name. But with her not being introduced, I I like her as a character. I think she's really cool. But the idea of Niers not knowing her throws me a little bit. With her being a chronomancer, or at least any sort of time magic, I feel would get you listed. and she has been a great general for a while. And to go back to Mr. Wiggles' point of it not being Alien Damas not really making that many waves, I mean, Niers knew a member of Will's family was going to marry a lizard person bastard in and that was going to cause problems for that political marriage. Like, it feels like people, like the larger people we've seen, should have known like everything about the great generals that they could know. And that's me.
Yeah, absolutely. That it is a little odd on that, but keep in mind that during that discussion about Niers and that lizard person deal, he did explicitly say that Tarandria was where his spy network was very undeveloped, and so he was kind of lucky to have that information to give to Will rather than something else. Mr. Europe, you wanted to speak.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a problem, but I mean, it's common kind of in the story that Pirate thinks up characters or plot points, but sometimes that haven't been fully developed yet because they didn't think them up until later during the story. And, you know, that's a thing kind of, it's a common thing in the kind of web fiction, really, where they write it week to week. But I was personally kind of fine with it. I like the idea of like just people popping up that haven't been mentioned much. And yeah, as Wiggle said, Niers did say he didn't actually know that much about Tarandria, and I got the impression that he only knew about the Kalinad thing because it was connected to Balaros, where the noble had married the lizard person, gotten together with. Yeah, I like the character, and I like these. It reminds me of the rear chapters where characters, like cool characters, just pop in and then die. And I mean, I personally really enjoyed reading it. Some foreshadowing in earlier chapters might have worked, but personally, it didn't bother me.
All right. Comrade Burv says, definitely more foreshadowed and definitely developed more as a character. Her last words were neat and all, but it was hard to care too much when she was introduced like a chapter ago and got zero fleshing out before the chapter where she dies. Dvorak says, I think Dioname's secrecy might be explained if there had previously been some power struggles between immortals, etc. Like, we know for sure that the Iron Vanguard had slain a dragon previously. Maybe a tie-in with that? Um, hmm, that's an interesting thought. But I don't think, I don't think that there has been that kind of, well, actually there was that,
Was, right? Yeah. The battle between, sorry to interrupt, the
yeah,
battle between the worm and the Lucifer, which destroyed the old palace, which she got
yeah.
involved in.
Yeah, there was that mentioned, but maybe if we had seen that expanded on a little bit more, it would have helped.
Mhm.
Is it what you're getting at, I think, Dvorak.
Do you want me to
Courier,
read out some of them?
yeah, go
Oh, you
ahead,
can go
Ashok.
ahead if you.
No, go ahead.
Cool. So Courier said a good portion of Giannomella's value is her being an unknown. So it's not too weird that no one really knows about her contributions. And yeah, Islandaris has been playing a fast expansion game while trying to make no noise about it at all, which is kind of at odds with their immortal perspective. Makes a lot of sense. Kylara says Nia should know of her if she has participated in battles before. They brought up officer lists of other companies, and she's too powerful not to know. Makes more sense if Nice knows of her, but her powers have been covered up. Yeah, good point. Spanner says all Dio Audio needs to know is, or needs to do, is wear different armor or whatever. Remember that until very recently, with TV scrying existing, if you didn't want to publicize who did stuff, then who would know? Very true. There may have just been rumors of a general who always gets there in the nick of time. And Trustworthy Sean says, Dianami was awesome. It felt like she had the presence and history of Maviola. I appreciated that Riz has trump cards that aren't loud and obvious. True, a lot of the immortals are hidden away too, so that also corroborates that. And Comrade Birth says Helen Damas knew a lot about her though. There was widespread mourning when she died. Yep, so that's the counterpoint to all of that.
On that point, though, on her being more widespread, it's the difference between something like a local hero versus um, something like a worldwide famous person because of how they've interacted with the public. Like knowing that one of your great generals exists and that she's a very good great general is kind of different than being worldwide famous. And I think they purposefully tried to make it so she wasn't worldwide famous because she's kind of their ace in the hole type of situation. All right, I think we're done with this question now. If you have any more thoughts, feel free to keep giving them and we'll read them out later. Next question is, anyone have any theories on what level Deoname was? This is kind of just a random theorizing kind of question because obviously there's no way for us to know what her level was. But I personally think she's in the 60s simply because she has a lot of very, 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 very powerful skills that kind of are on the level with what I expect Niers to have as well. And so I think she's definitely in the 60s, but probably not in the 70s because uh, I don't know how she'd have gotten into the 70s in this kind of era. Landray, you wanted to speak.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think she was probably high 60s, but not capstone 70, because my guess is that's when you get Archmage. But I wonder if her power, like being demonstrated here against characters who are nearing level 50, with uh yeah, well, whatever, with the Lancer, I feel like you're starting to get to see what sort of power we're going to be dealing with later when Peril Chandler comes into it, because he's level 80, I believe.
We don't know like a exact number on him. He's been speculated to be in the 70s or possibly 80s by characters, but we don't know for sure. Um, Trustworthy Sean says, when I considered Dioname, it felt like to me she has a grand history, like she has a dunk, an egg spin-off, a material behind her that we don't see. She considered Bellavere as a fair fight. I'd agree with 65. Um, and that's a lot of characters, and The Wandering Inn is we could spend days, or not days, we could spend books and books on these kind of nations that we've never seen before, and it would be amazing, but Pirateaba just doesn't have the time to do that. They need more hands. They need simulacras themselves. Dvorak says level 55 plus was super high end class. It had a freaking comma. And that was, oh yeah, that was a point I I don't see in any of these questions, but I guess we could discuss that now. But that is one of the cooler things about this chapter lore-wise is that instead of, mashing classes together, in a lot of ways you don't even need to do that to consolidate them. You can consolidate them as two individual classes that you're just now leveling up as one combined class. So she's both getting experience from being a general, while if she ever wanted to do it, she could also gain experience by doing champion-esque things like Rabbit Eater is doing, just being the champion of people. And so I think that kind of comma addition adds a lot of depth into what class consolidations can be, because it can be basically two separate classes in one. Vesker said, I'd expect her to be in her 60s, but I could see her 70 capstone being the one where she sent a message back in time and used a skill to change her own fate from dying to evading. And yeah, that was one of the reasons why I thought she was at least in the 60s, is because that kind of skill sounds like something along the lines of what was Niers' skill, the tier ascension one. I think it was like tier ascension pawn to queen or
Promote the
something like that.
pawn. Yeah, class ascension. Promote the pawn. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And so I it's like on the level of that skill. Even changing time 15 seconds in the past and changing your own fate like that is an insane skill to have. So I definitely think it was something in the level 60s that she got that.
I can read out Lanray's comment.
Go ahead.
So Lanray says, it does seem like 60 plus is when skills start to become truly unfair and reality altering. Very true. Just chiming in with my own quick answer to that question. So I would say at least 60, because we know Tyrion felt out-leveled. And we also know that Eldavin, he kind of portrayed himself as a Grand Mage, and I kind of feel 60 is the threshold for Archmage. So I would say she's at least 60, in my opinion.
All right, it seems like we have all the answers we're going to get for this question, so let's move on to the final question for this chapter. If anyone wants to put in any more questions for this chapter, you can, but if not, we'll just move on from this chapter after this question. Will Seraphil's reputation start to change with her new heroics, or will she still be looked down on due to the undead? This is kind of like a hard question to answer for me, because we know for a fact that Tarandria is insanely against any form of undead, simply because of the necromancer and his terrorizing their countryside for decades. And so uh, it's a really cool class, but I think it's a class that will just um, lead to her being more ostracized more uh, and more looked down upon, because you can't really fault her for getting skills and such like this from her experiences, but she's basically become something like a necromancer, which I guess we can talk about her skills this chapter instead of the next chapter, since it was a minor part. Like the two skills she got, one, the ghost hand one, and the bodyguards of one of death and one of life, or two of death and two of life. Like that kind of thing is something you'd see from a necromancer, and so I think that will get her persecuted in Tarandria. Ashok, do you want to answer the question and read out any of the discussion?
Yeah, so I'm curious about what skills she had beforehand, or what she actually did beforehand to kind of give her such a reputation, because it was Kara who kind of summoned the undead. But you can see very clearly that Seraphel got, those skills. I think, was it Royal Slap that became Ghost Slap or Ghost Hand, something like that. And also that bodyguard skill where you can get two ghosts as a bodyguard, which I think is really cool. So maybe I missed this in earlier chapters, but yeah, off the top of my head, it's not clear to me what she did to. I know it was mentioned that she would go around crypts and so on, trying to talk to ghosts, but I don't know
Uh,
more than that.
just a quick aside on that. I think that was part of Gravesong, and
I see.
so it won't be in the main story at any time, I don't think, but we're just getting hints of Gravesong lore.
Cool. So yeah, those are just my initial comments. I kind of hope she's definitely got a more positive reputation, given her daring charge into battle and all of that. But yeah, curious to see where it goes. I think Lanray wanted to. I'm sorry, wait. So maybe said, I don't know if her reputation will change, but she better marry the cursed prince. Makes a lot of sense. Put the two, well, maybe cursed is too strong for Seraphel. Maybe that is the name, but put the two of them together. And then Lanray wanted to say something.
Yeah, I feel like any other noble of Tarandria getting a necromancy skill effectively would, yeah, like lead to them being ostracized. But she appears to be in the best position to not suffer it as badly, being that she has a PR agency for knighthood. I feel like they could spin it. Like Calenfer has relied on necromancy in the past with Pearl Chandler. Obviously, that went terribly, but it sort of evokes those same feelings. The undead rising to drive back the invading force at the border in that very pass at the same time. I feel they could sell it, and I agree with the marrying the Griffin Prince. It's the one husband she couldn't kill.
Very true. Yeah, very good points. So Spanner says, was she ever looked down on because of undead? I thought it was because her husbands all died. Yeah, that's what I kind of think as well. It wasn't clear to me what her connection was to the undead, even though I have read Gravesong. But I will, yeah, curious if anyone else has any thoughts on that. Mr. Europe says, I meant now, if not for the undead, she'd almost certainly be lauded now. And this was in response to Spanner. Okay, curious what other people think about this. Conrad Bove says, I believe it's a combination skill with Kara. Yeah, so yeah, I guess I don't remember all the details, but I'm kind of curious where the link with the undead came from. And Mr. Europe wanted to say something.
Yeah, I meant, just to clarify the question, I meant that, of course, before now, she was called cursed because of her dead husbands, but now she's both saving the kingdom and dealing with undead publicly, which, is the whole point of the question. But personally, first of all, I think there was a line about that there was like a song in the air right before the undead came, and yeah, that's why it seems like a combination skill or something to do with Kara. But personally, I feel like Calenfer will be forced to do good PR because they can't really afford to lose princesses right now. So they can't really ostracize her or throw her out, especially when she's apparently pretty powerful. So they would, what I think is going to happen is they're going to lean into the whole cursed aspect and make her like the scary princess defending the realm, like an anti-hero type in their PR notices, which I look forward to reading if that's the case.
Nobody. We can hear your keyboard clicking. I think that's all we're getting for answers for that question. So let's move on to the final question. What are your guys' thoughts on Tyrion being de-aged? Why do you think Pirateaba did this? Ashok, did you want to give your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I guess the obvious thing is, the whole Ryoka Tyrion thing and how Lord Pelmia, I mean, that's the cover story. But I'm curious if Pirate had, a more serious aim behind it. Did she want Tyrion to take a different path? Were they actively trying to, remove one of the more powerful lords to provide a challenge for someone else to level? Yeah, just curious what people think about that.
Yeah,
So go on.
in my opinion, I don't really know how it will work out in the story. As in, we're getting a major war or end of the world type of war coming. It appears, and so Tyrion being de-leveled at such a crucial time seems like it could only go poorly for him. Um, I do think you're onto something with him becoming different from what he was before. So I think there's a lot of room for him to grow in different ways. And we've already seen that in some ways with the skills he got from killing the Time General. So maybe he's gonna be more time-based in some ways. Like maybe instead of speeding just himself up, he speeds up time or something. I don't know. But it'll be interesting to see how he changes from what he was before.
It's a really good synergy there between his speeds, movement skills, and him slowing down time. He
Yeah.
actually got that skill a second in time. So Vesca had a comment, clearly to make the Ryoka ship possible, so that it will never happen. Especially with his greater resistance to Kronos, he might be looking at a half-elf life expectancy. So I think even in Discord there was some discussion what that skill would actually mean. Does it mean he's resistant to time-based skills, or will it lengthen his own lifespan? So I kind of think it's the former, but I'm not sure actually. Maybe had a comment. I think Pirateaba is de-aging him to give us all hope for the Tyrion Ryoka ship, only to rip out our hearts when it doesn't happen because Ryoka says, nah, dude, GTFO. Lanway wanted to say something.
I wonder if it will have also affected his personality in some ways. Wonder like moving him back before his like the rage and sort of everything else and bitterness took him for the Drakes and the Knolls and that general sense of duty. He seems like he is more emotional in some ways after the events. I mean, that could just be because he's been through a massive war. I do hope it wasn't just for the sake of appeasing certain people who don't like there being an age gap of that size between him and Ryoka. I I would prefer if there's like a good narrative reason for it.
Yeah. Comrade Buff wanted to say something.
That they actually just said a lot of the things that I wanted to say, but with 2 points, I do think like greater resistance Kronos. I do believe that means he has resistance to time, in the same way that like if you had greater resistance fire, you would be less affected by fire. I think he's less affected by time, and might get a half elf lifespan. Also, I feel like a narrative purpose in de-aging him. If it is he is actually de-aged to like he's reverted to the person he was 16 years ago, and he only has the memories, but he has a chance to be a different person. um I think the thing that we can't just overlook is the fact that he uh caused the war at the end of volume 5, that like he got like hundreds of thousands of who we know to be sentient creatures killed in a pretty awful fashion. You can't overlook that, or the fact that he was willing to kill Liskor and everyone inside of it. Um, I feel like putting him in a spot where he is like mentally before he would do something like that, it's giving him a second chance in a way that I don't think he deserves a second chance the way he is now. That's all.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Perhaps he's too far gone at the moment. He's too far gone down one path to have a believable redemption in some sense. But yeah, a younger him, might be more worthy of a second chance or a different path. So Pluriel says Tyrion knows the need for speed. Now he learns the need for flight. Mhm. Lynette, interesting thing. Kronos is a new word. It's Greek, and so was Alessam's new class. Very true. Rosie adds on to Lynette's comment. I believe there are some Greek people in the UN in Belarus. And Melly, I think, or Mel, I'm not sure. Who is going to laugh at Tyrion more, Magnolia or Oressa? I definitely think it will be Magnolia, but I was very amused to see that Ressa and Tyrion were in a relationship. At least there was a comment that hinted at that. Dvorak says he might be needed to combat edge thing shenanigans. So I guess that's edge refers to what's it called? Like the monsters climbing over the end of the world or whatever. The disappearance of Cronus mages when they die, not just Dianame, might mean there's some plot relevant reason. That's a really good point. I'm very curious about what actually happened to her soul. Nobody says Pirate would never do such extreme things to appease the readers. She would do it to troll the haters. Definitely agree with Pirate's trolling. Lynette says they're called Seamwalkers. Thanks. And Spanner says the fact it isn't a green skill, Tynolessums wasn't a green class, means it isn't new, maybe just forgotten, which is often talked about in InWorld. Very true. And another comment from Nobody. Early in the story, Tyrion mentions to Ryoka an island where time is twisted and weird. Okay, that's really interesting. I don't remember that. But yeah, anyone feel free to elaborate. Maybe the Chronos resistance is for that.
All right. I think we'll move on now from chapter 8.74. If you have any more comments, Vesker says it was the one with colors changing space-time where some magical reagent was mined. Yeah, the one with what was it? Wenge? Like the color wenge or something like that? Yeah. That island was weird. But anyways, we are going to move on now from chapter 8.74. So let's move into chapter 8.75. And to begin, we'll just do anyone's general thoughts / impressions, any overarching thoughts you had on 8.75, how you felt about it, anything like that. And I'll start, and Ashok, if you want to give your own opinion afterwards, go ahead. But I thought 8.75 was, it was definitely the wind down / end of the arc in a lot of ways, rather than being a big standalone chapter. It was kind of just a wind down chapter after a week of chapters. So it definitely had a few more issues to it in that it felt a bit more rushed in some ways, and it could have been expanded on in other ways to make it uh, a more fleshed out chapter. But I think it did what it wanted to do, and I think it was well done in that regard, and that we saw um, the big war in Alien Domus set up, and that was basically the end of this whole entire arc. And what Pirateaba seemed to want to get to is this big battle was just starting as the Seamwalkers were coming up over the edge, as they'd finished coming up over the edge, I should say. So, it could have used some more expansion, but I definitely still like the chapter. Go ahead, Ashok.
Yeah, just kind of wanted to echo what you just said. So I kind of felt it was rushed as well, especially the bit with Kara. I think if Parrot was at full energy, there would have been more hype around that, especially just before she used all of her skills. I felt that could have been written a bit better, but I really liked the aftermath of the previous battle. I didn't expect to see so many levels and skills. It's always great when Pirate shares that. So that was nice. So Spanner had a few comments. Said Tyrion had been there, and this is in response to the island with the colors. And then there's a picture of Groot, I think. Rabbit Eater in my head right now, given his light skills. And then Lanray wanted to say something.
I feel like I agree that there are like a lot of parts in this chapter that were a little bit rushed, but I liked it a lot. And frankly, I needed that little bit of slice of life of them all decompressing after the battle. I like slice of life, and it's been a load of action-packed chapters, and to have just Rabbit Eater sleeping and waking up and attacking Tyrion and everything else, it was nice. And then the race through Alien Darmus was a decent capstone to end it all off.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think it was a good chapter, even with me thinking it was a bit rushed. I still enjoyed it. I just felt that if it had been done at a different point in time, maybe just like a little more rested, it would have been expanded on more. But I definitely think it was a good chapter either way. Maybe says seconded 8.75, feeling a little rushed, but understandably so. 100k words in a week is insane. I'm just hoping Rabbit Eater saying I'm a plant means he can show a little skin now. That would be funny if like he just explained away him being green by, oh, I have light storage now. I gotta be green. Um and yeah, 100k words in a week is insane. I don't know how they do that. Uh Mr. Europe says, I think it's funny that the so-called wind down chapter ends with the immortals going out to beat the crap out of the rest of Terandria. Yeah, that's that's kind of the thing with all these arcs we've seen so far at the very end. They're they've wound down to the ending, but foreshadowed what we're getting at the very end of this volume, which seems to be massive. So we'll see how it all fits together, and I'm definitely looking forward to that. Um, Courier says, I've got to say, Seamwalkers is a great name. It's sad but good that cliffhangers never stuck. And yeah, I really thought that Seamwalker's name was well done. I didn't expect that name at all, and it fits really well into like it makes you think what is a seam they're walking through? What is the last time a seam then? Instead of, like just a break in the world. And so it's an interesting name choice. Comrade Burv says, do you think Tyrion realized that Rabbit Eater was a goblin? He asked about Rabbit Eater never taking his helmet off, and it seemed like he was trying to mislead the people around him by suggesting it was a Drake or Null. That was actually one of the questions we have listed here, is whether or not Tyrion actually suspects that, or if anyone suspects that. And my answer to that is no, I don't think so, simply because it's so far out there that they just never would think that's the actual case. And so I don't think anyone suspects that, but maybe that's just my opinion. Maybe you guys disagree with that or think differently. If you do, go ahead and type it out. Lanray says, oh, one thing I did notice, does the Fablade stun mode work through enchantments? She stabbed through what must have been enchanted armor and clothing. Also, Tyrion might recognize the axe and cape. And yeah, Landray, it seemed from the chapter that the stun mode literally just passed through armor in general, like it in enchanted armor. It seemed that it just went through it, so it wasn't affected by the armor because it wasn't trying to target the armor at all. It was trying to target the person. So maybe if you had an enchantment on your person, it wouldn't work, but who knows? We'll see in the future. Melly says, I feel that the immortals at the end were out of character. Why did they all agree with Riss right away? If they want to stay hidden, then them going out to battle to trash everyone else, then this is a very poor method. If they win the battle, then they're putting a huge target on them and their country's back. If they win the battle, the whole world will be like, what the fuck is up with that? Countries and some people will figure it out. It's not a smart move to stay hidden. So why did they agree with Riss? Is it all for the plot? I don't know if it's in character or not, simply because it's hard to tell with who they are at this point. But I do understand why they would do this. It's because they just lost one of their greatest generals, and they have countries from all over declaring war on them and joining this conflict. So they can't really allow this conflict to become a referendum on Aelandamas, and so they need to crush it as decisively as possible in their minds. So I do understand why they're doing it.
Will I read
Spanish,
out the others?
yeah,
I
sure,
just
go
did
ahead.
so you can have a break.
Yeah.
So Spanner says, I have a feeling that Ryoka managed to figure out the controls, so it has a lot more usability now. In response to Lanray's comment. Courier says, I think Tyrion suspects something, but also doesn't care enough to ever think about it again or talk to anyone about it. So yeah, I was intrigued by that as well, especially since Rabbit Eater called the Dame of the Hills. He called her sister, and I think a lot of people heard that or were aware of it. So I'm curious to see where that goes. Melly says in response to that comment as well, I think some people in Liscore might have figured it out. That scene was on TV, so maybe some back in Liscore did. Ren says it's a but if a floss move. Not sure if that's mistyped. And Comrade Burf says, one thing from the prior chapter that upset me greatly is that the general says, you have been my end, but I am the great general of Elindamus, and I will only rest when I have said my piece. Which is totally fair, dying words and all that, but then she attacks the two people who killed her in a serious way. I feel like it reflects poorly on her character that she would do that. Yeah, that's a very good point. And it also kind of feels like the skill wasn't made for that. But perhaps her saying her piece, her taking retribution is in some sense incorporated in that. But yeah, that's interesting.
All right. I guess we got all the general impressions down. If you have any more, keep typing them. We'll read them out later. But let's move on to the first question for 8.75. And this was actually a very interesting question that I saw quite a lot of people discussing. It's considering the Seamwalkers aren't in Tarandria yet, how did Dionami get eaten? Are all ghosts being eaten en route to the Deadlands now, or is there something special about Dionami? This is from you, Mr. Europe, so did you want to give your thoughts on this?
Just that personally, I'm wondering how exactly this is happening, how Uname gets, it's kind of in the question, really. Either it's something intrinsic to Dioname and like time mages or something, or it's something is going on to all ghosts. Personally, someone floated a theory that maybe it was that she was using up her own time and that she would have gotten eaten by a Seamwalker later, but like fast forwarded through her ghost life, which I personally do not believe. I just think it would be way too overpowered for time mages to be able to use their ghost's time when they can theoretically live or be dead for tens of like millennia upon millennia afterwards.
Yeah, and I on one of the points you made that maybe it's just unique to time mages, that was my theory too, is that um we know from Eldiven that time mages in the past tend to just disappear in the middle of battles. And so I think this phenomenon of Dioname getting eaten by a Seamwalker is actually something that all time mages have had to deal with in the past because instead of, they're kind of like they're kind of connected to whatever realm the Seamwalkers come into or come from. And I think that would explain it, though it's obviously a pretty big crack theory at this point. It's just that we have never seen anything like that, but we know that time mages just kind of randomly disappear. So it'd be really interesting if these Seamwalkers kind of were in their world was kind of like a out of time place. And so have they have the opportunity to kind of eat these time mages as they use up all their time.
Can I give a quick rebuttal to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the reason why I don't think that is because, first of all, Risveri knows enough about time magic and stuff to teach Dioname everything she knows, but then was very confused when she didn't arrive as a ghost. It feels like if all time mages, if this happened to all time mages, it would have happened, or he would have known about it, rather than just be like, he didn't seem like he even considered the idea that she wouldn't leave a ghost, which is why I think that theory is not very likely. I also think that it would be very interesting if now suddenly people in general don't leave ghosts. It would give a lot more permanence, I suppose, to after we introduce the Deadlands, and now people can just talk to ghosts. Suddenly, that gets removed until they've dealt with the Seamwalker threat. That's just personal opinion.
Yeah, that's a interesting thought. Just get rid of the Deadlands in a lot of ways, or make people want to deal with that threat as soon as possible. And that kind of like expedites it, because if every new ghost is being eaten, they really need to deal with that. But let's go through these comments now. So these comments are about the Dioname's last act. Nobody says, I doubt she was trying to look good. She's not a super honorable character. She's not a knight. Ren says, it's a bit of a floss move, by which I mean the mortals going nuclear is really going to get the eyes on them. Melly says, we saw that ghost were waiting for and talking to those that died in the battlefield, so it was a Dioname thing. Some elder things can live between worlds, hence between time and space. Dionames was messing with time and space, and that might have signaled a Seamwalker that someone was playing in their territory. Eldavin/Terry stated that some mages, maybe mages that played with time and space, just disappeared during battles. Messing with time and space might signal a Seamwalker that there is a high mage over here. Hence, a nice nom-nom snack. She not being in the land of dead shows that she did not die in the in-universe, but in some other place that is not connected to the land of the dead. And yeah, that is true, that it's like as she was dying, like as she was moving into the Deadlands, she was grabbed. So it's interesting that they seem to be able to do that rather than be in the Deadlands itself, grabbing people. Dvorak says, thought that there was a good chance she was yoinked by a Fae or emissary from worlds that are still connected to Faelands. There was a large section dedicated to Realm of Fae laying in chaos. There was also the bit of the Fairy King waited, his plans unknown to all but himself. To answer the how would Catspaw have access to Inverse. And yeah, it's definitely not set in stone. Like, the only thing I'll say about whether it was a Seamwalker or not is that Tyrion has seen this horror that grabbed Dioname. Like, he definitely said, I've seen this horror before. So it's not 100% that it's a Seamwalker, but I just think it's the most likely scenario. Lanray, you wanted to speak.
Yeah, I wonder if there's a third party that either we have already been introduced to, or we have yet to be introduced to, that's dealing with anyone who severely messes with the timeline, or just time in general. Like, yeah, Visi taught her how to use time magic, but he himself says that he doesn't really dabble with it because it can go wrong so easily. I just wonder if that is part of it, like something did go drastically wrong in the past, and now there's something that yoinks up anyone who's like on the cusp of doing something really bad, or just takes their souls away because maybe they have some sort of power in the Deadlands that they shouldn't have. We haven't really seen any chronomancers amongst the ghosts, although they are incredibly rare, so I guess we really wouldn't.
Yeah, exactly. That's part of what my reasoning behind like all chronomancers were taken rather than going to Deadlands is just that we haven't seen any of them in the Deadlands, but that could just be us not seeing them in general. Vesker says Tyrion looked at it yoinking her and saw one of those washed up on the shore once. It's definitely a seam walker. Yeah, I was trying to find where that passage was where he talked about see it like I think there was some passage in the past where Tyrion said that he's seen one of those horrors he's seen the things from the last tide before, but I could never find it. So I don't know if it was more explicit than that. But yeah. Let's move on from this question. And we've already done the do you think anyone suspects Rapid Eater being a goblin question? So let's move on to who tried to kill Ryoka. Like, does anyone have any new ideas or any new thoughts on who might have tried to kill Ryoka? This chapter we saw that Oina, Oina, I don't know how to say her name, the Queen of Alien Damas definitely did not try to kill her. The mortals might have had the opportunity to kill her, but none of them are fessing up to it, which makes sense. But we also know that in order to do it, it almost certainly had to be an inside job because of how little interaction was done with that package and how it was gotten into such a secure place of the or the palace. And I think it was something I still think it's something we just don't know about yet. Like I think it was an actor or actors that we just haven't met yet. And maybe we will never know. But Ashok, do you want to go through the questions or the answers?
Yeah. So Comrade Burf says Greg in response to who tried to kill Ryoka. Greg is always suspect. Korea says 20% chance it was Vala Teresa. Okay, interesting points. I'm not sure what her motivation would be, but there's always revenge. Lanray wants to say something.
I mean, it could be a long plot from Pursuer from using the power of the Circle of Thorns, but I doubt it. I wonder if it's somebody who's involved in the auction for the scroll, trying to eliminate competition. Like, she's just another person that could be in for the scroll, and there are powerful people coming through portals in the Feylands now. They might be able to send assassins that the Immortals can't even see.
Very true. Ren says, for a moment I thought it was Quick Elias. True. Yes, he wasn't happy with her. Comrade Burf says, not a joke, I really think it's Greg. Okay. You never know. Maybe says, Uranus being involved in the Circle of Thorns makes me wonder if perhaps it's a callback to that. Maybe that dude who is presumably possessed by Regis. So is Uina the princess, right? Or is she someone else? I'm
Oina is the
confused.
queen. She's the queen.
Okay, is she involved in the Circle of Thorns?
Her agents were some of the traitors. Remember when the Circle of Thrones was like dissolving? There were like half of them were traitors from outside the continent trying to destroy the Circle of Thrones. She was one of those people.
Oh wow, okay, I totally missed that. Thanks. And Korea says it wasn't motivation. Val would protect her message and not expect someone that's not Ryoka to tamper with it. Yes, I don't fully understand that. So, what was Val's involvement here? what was her message that she was trying to protect.
So,
But yeah. Yeah?
so it's a theory that what happened was not a trap, but a gift that was set to explode if someone that is not Ryoka touches it. That's what Courier is
I see.
referring. That's what Courier is referring to.
Thanks for clarifying that. And then nobody says, I know a lot of people in Patreon spoilers seem to think Kara, though I disagree. Yeah, I would question the motivation there as well. It's not clear why she would do that, especially since it was Ryoka's chambers. And Melly says, maybe we will find out in Volume 9 if we are lucky. I definitely second that if we are lucky comment, given how long it takes for some threads to wrap up. Veska says, Legit had a theory on the server that it truly was Greg because he took the deal of the dancing man god. He took the deal of the dancing man gods to get laid more, and is an agent of the gods now. You never know what might tempt someone. Yeah, those are all the comments for now. So, Wiggles, you missed the question on the purple coloring. I'm not sure if you did that deliberately or not.
I did it deliberately, simply because we
Okay,
have
no
enough
worries.
questions that I don't think we need to pause on that one simply because we don't have that much information. So if we still have time at the end, we'll come back to it. Maybe says the God of Secrets could have been behind it too, the bombing. Yeah, I think honestly the dead gods are like one of the prime suspects at this point, simply because getting that bomb into Ryoka's room without anyone knowing about it is very difficult, and they also have the motive to want to kill Ryoka. And a lot of people don't have that kind of motive where they want it that badly that they would go to these kinds of lengths. So it's interesting to think that maybe the dead gods were involved. Courier says Emmerhain's Ryoka did what scene points to him being the source, in my opinion, and the plans were long set up, and this is a rare route that she lives. Melly says, did Ryoka mess up Emmerhain's plans by attacking Eldivan? I think if she had succeeded, she would have messed up his plans. But without Eldivan actually truly dying there, I don't think his plans were affected too much. Courier says, failure is even more crazy though, because no one would have expected that to work. A few more people are typing. Okay. Courier also says there was never a case for someone failing to kill Eldivan at that point. Lanray says, false flag attack by Ryoka to kill the person messing up her life. Okay. I don't know about that, but all right. Well, let's move on to the next question, and this is from Melly. They say, what do we all think about Ryoka after this arc? And do you want to give your thoughts on this, Melly? If you want to speak, go ahead, or you can just type them out.
Yeah, I don't mind speaking. Honestly, I don't know. I'm at a loss. I've always liked Ryoka. Her characters, her trials and tribulations. I understand why she did what she did to Eldivan. I see what she was trying to accomplish, and I see how bad it's blown up in her face. I kind of feel she's trying to play all sides. No, actually, I think at this point she is on no one's side. She's just trying to protect her friends, and it's just making her look really, really poor in everybody else's eyes. But at this point, I really don't know how to feel about Ryoka as a character. Like, I still like her, but I'm kind of cringe at the moment.
Okay, it's a funny way to put it, but I I still like Ryoka, and I definitely see her motivation for why she's doing what she's doing, and that she knows there's a bigger threat going down around the world. And at the same time, she also has seen a lot of the good that Alien Domus has to offer, rather than, this expansionist tendency they have. And she sees it as something she needs to protect in a lot of ways. So I think I agree in a lot of ways with Ryoka's character and what she's trying to do. It just, she's not capable of doing it in the way that she wants it done, because she's just not a big power behind Alan Damas. So affecting their national policies is a hard thing to do. So it's hard. Maybe
Just
says,
a
oh, go ahead.
sorry, just a very quick comment. I love whenever Ryoka is prompted to do something, she'll sometimes reference what the fairy king said to her. The time has come for you to do more than just run, which I think is really great. I
Yeah,
can read up Maybe's comment.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I'll just respond to what you said, that I absolutely agree with that. It's continuous progression of her character, because this is just trying to actually do things is better than what she's done in the past, which is run away in a lot of times. But go ahead and
Mhm.
read the comments.
So maybe says, big fan of Ryoka evolving a bit and realizing that she needs to get a bit more involved in the world in a bigger way. Yeah, totally agree with that. Part of that is a selfish motivation because she needs to get Eren back to life. Part of that is her trying to rebalance the world and protect her friends. Her use of the wind sword was great, in my opinion. Yeah, I really love that she found the manual and she's actually working through that. Yeah, and also second that a lot of her motivation is from trying to protect her friends. Lanray has a comment.
I really like Ryoka. Yeah, but she appears like she takes so much on herself, but is also appearing to like she suffers under the weight of it and goes off the rails. I feel like Kara's right that she could do with going to see a fort healer or whatever the equivalent of a psychologist is in this world, because she's just gone from battle to battle and is in a constant reactive state. It's uh it's interesting to read her, and I'm interested to see where she goes from this. I don't know how she can ever go back to her normal life after publicly beheading an Archmage, even if he is alive.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I was very surprised when she tried to kill Altavan. I thought it was a bit out of character, but after rereading it and realized that she very kind of consciously checked it wouldn't kill him. But yeah, it's a very surprising move. And, Alderaan and Teriak are completely different people, and I kind of feel for both of them with both the situations. So maybe says set faces to effing stun was the only line in TWI that made me cringe a little so far. True. It read kind of like an Aileron Con book. Spanner says no one saw her hit him. They saw her try outside his tent fort. Kel says Ryoka should drag Eren along to a thought they're both deeply traumatized. Eren seems to deal with it better though, but definitely agree with that.
I don't even know if
Yeah.
Aaron deals with it better, simply because she she pushes it away in a lot of times, but I don't think that's really the best way to deal with it at all, and it'll like come back to bite her in the long run.
The power of aloofness.
So just kind of reading Cal continued to say Eren stomps it down and smiles through the pain, and that's it. That's not dealing with it. Yeah, I agree with that. Thanks for clarifying. Spanner says Eren compartmentalizes everything. Thought healers for everyone. Mm-hmm. True.
All right, that seems to be all the answers for this question. So let's move on. We'll do um we'll do this there were two more questions. These last two I'm just going to combine because they're pretty similar. Um will Rabbit Eater keep the Light Herald powers, and Leon gave the boon to Rabbit Eater. Who will figure out first, and how will they react? I don't think Rabbit Eater will keep that Light Herald power simply because, it's a temporary boon that Lionette, needs to utilize in the best way possible. So she'll have to give it to other people if she needs to. And that could be someone, maybe even Mersha, is soon enough. But I don't think he'll keep it. And I think the first person who's going to figure it out is Seraphil. She's already kind of guessed that it was Lionette, but she has the information network established already since she has Dalamont right next to Lionette, and so she'll know, I think, the first out of all of them.
Just quickly chiming in there. So I kind of feel he has skills now that are very similar. Like he got light-soaked armaments or something like that, and his class has changed to Knight of Dawn. So even if he loses the temporary skills, like he has kind of similar skills now.
Yeah,
So just
he can definitely kind of fake it a little bit, but I don't think he's on the level as the Light Herald yet in terms of what his light skills are.
Mm-hmm. So Vesca says Seraphel guessed it was Lionette already. True. And Lanray wanted to say something.
Yeah, we covered most of it in the intro, so the question might not have been as good now, but I do think that he seems to be on the path to effectively getting some powers that are relatively similar to that with like you said, the light soaked armaments and such. He seems very much like he's going to be the shining light of a champion. And I wonder if he'll become a Goblin Lord under Rags as a Goblin King.
That was a interesting little point that Anazurhe made, that he was on the way to becoming a Goblin Lord, and I think it would really be cool to see him as a Goblin Lord along with Rags, because he's their champion. Like, he can become kind of what Greydath is in a lot of ways. Spanner says he's the Light Herald, spelled Lite. Thank you for puns. I love puns so much. Melly asks, how will the king and queen react? I think they're going to be pretty stunned right now because they both know that it wasn't the king who did this. And so they know that one of their children is high enough level and strong enough to grant a boon that is similar in strength, if not like the same strength as the Light Herald's boon itself, which is pretty insane to from uh, see from their princesses. And so they'll want Lionette back even more now. Landry, you wanted to respond to that, or Ashok, go ahead if you wanted to say something first.
Yeah, just very quickly chiming in. From what Lionette would always say, I kind of thought most of the princesses were quite low level, like in the teens. But Seraphel is like comparable to Lionette. Like last we saw, Lionette was 26, maybe 27. Seraphel level to 27. So they are actually both pretty high level. Lenray, go on. Sorry.
Yeah, I kind of almost feel bad for the king and queen, who I'm wondering if Lionette might have outleveled the king, and that's why she was able to give the very light heraldish boon. I also find it kind of funny that they're going to be dealing with one daughter that's summoning undead, one daughter who is high level enough to send a boon across continents, and the new champion that I'm assuming, being PR focused people, they're going to be wanting to invite to the palace and everything, and we'll comically find out is a goblin at some point and not know how to deal with that.
Yeah, their whole political machinations are kind of coming crumbling down with all these uh, weird abilities their daughters have. On Ashok's point, I think one of the reasons why Seraphil is actually high level is because she's been a part of so many sieges. And we know that sieges, when you survive them, as long as you're doing something, you're going to be leveling like crazy. So I think Seraphel and Lionette are the exceptions to um, the princess's levels rather than the rule. Like they're almost certainly in my mind the two highest princesses. Um, Courier says the queen has already been trying to breathe down Lionette's neck about the whole dowry sense that was shown before, and so much has happened on Tarandria in the past year. Maybe says, does anyone want to take any bets that when we get back to Lionette, they're going to have a little piece saying something like, hey, you were passed out for like 3 days after you did that boon and your nose bled a lot. Are you okay? That would be extreme. I think maybe just something like Erin where she passed out for a little bit, right? Maybe not 3 days of passing out. That'd be insane. Um, Melly says Ashok is correct. Lionette is 26. Seraphel is 27. Level 26 and level 27, I should say. Spanner says that we know of, she leveled when the Dragon Pact was made. And that's true. We don't know her exact levels right now simply because we haven't seen them. Melly says, how would the royal family react to Lionette's boyfriend, Han? They're not going to be happy. I don't think any royal family anywhere would be happy with her boyfriend. Like, I just don't think it would ever work out in any royal household. Um, Cosmic Chaos says, don't forget the daughter that will literally fight people to climb into a van that has free magic books on the side. What a fun royal family. Can't wait to properly meet the parents. Okay, although I find that hilarious, I also find it depressing as hell because she literally just wants to read books and study magic, but she's also knows that she has to marry off. So she's just like constantly trying to find someone that has access to magic, and that's depressing, but it's also hilarious. Um, Lannery says the solstice effect coming into full play. Ren says, I expect that Lionette leveled a fair bit from that battle. She might have leveled once or twice, actually, yeah, because doing something like that is insanely hard and it changed the course of the battle. Kel says it is both accepted and encouraged in the House of Solstice and replied to Melly's point on the royal family and Lionette's boyfriend. Lannery says technically Pawn is a prince, so they might be able to swing it. Uh, is Pawn a prince? Hmm. Melly says in reply to Kel that maybe the royal family would like to have the Black Tide on their side.
Just
I
quickly in response,
yeah, go ahead.
sorry, just quickly in response to Lanray's, I guess technically Pawn is the son of a queen. They're all children of
Oh,
queens. Maybe I'm not sure that's what you meant there, but that's a new thing.
okay, I get it. Okay. I did not get that connection at all. I see now. Um, Vesker says a class for Pawn is Fresh Prince of the Hive. You people and your jokes. Okay, so it seems like we're done with this discussion on these chapters, and I think the last question that I wanted to ask everyone is how would you like the week of a chapter a day? Was it a great way to tell this arc, or would you have liked normal chapters that kind of expanded the arc more? And for me, in a lot of ways, I think this was a very good way to tell this arc because it was extremely fast paced from what we normally get. And this kind of chapter a day setup here really helped push it forward in time rather than focusing too much on the little details. It really made this arc go at light speed to try and finish up in time. I really thought that was well done because we all know that if they wanted to, they could have expanded this arc into like 5 or 6 regular chapters, and we would have spent a month on it, and it would have been great. But it would have been, it would have been much slower than what we saw here. And I definitely appreciated the speed for once. Lanray, you wanted to speak.
Yeah, I I thought it was great for telling like this really cool overarching story with like the whole arc. It would have been hard to wait like for I guess it would have taken maybe 2 weeks to tell the whole story in like the 100,000 words ish sort of thing. But I feel if it became a common thing, Pirate would disappear into a cloud of ash like she'd been Thanos snapped at some point. Oh, or they.
Yeah, it's definitely something that is very difficult for them to do, and you kind of see it in their writing at the end of the week. It just kind of like falling apart at the seams because of how difficult it is to write a chapter every day and write 10,000 words every day for a week. It's just insane.
Can I read the comments just so that you can get a bit of a break?
Yeah, go ahead.
So Vasquez says, I liked it for this arc, but in general prefer the normal twice a week setup. And then Melly wanted to say something.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Mr. Wriggles on all the points he made. Pirateaba wrote a book in a week. 100,000 words is a book. And for this arc, it was a lot of fun, especially being able to watch it on the live stream. I've never been able to do that, and I don't think I can do that on a regular basis. So it really was a nice treat to be able to participate in that. But I can tell how exhausted Pirate was at the end of it, and well-deserved break that they are taking. I agree that if we were to expand this arc into normal chapters, it would be like 300 words, normal chapters, and it would be huge, and we would get a lot out of it, and it would be amazing. So there was definitely a lot more that could have been told in this arc, but I think we got all the what we needed to get out of it, and I really enjoy it, and I'm really looking forward to what comes next. And it was a lot of fun to be able to watch it every single day, especially because I can't on a normal basis do that.
Yeah, very true. I like the shorter chapters as well. Like if plot speed stays the same, like having 10,000 word chapters a week would be easier to read. But as you said, we sacrificed the detail. So Ren says, I loved it, but damn, was it a killer? Cal says, it covered a lot of ground really fast, and it was lovely to wake up in the morning to a new chapter. Yeah, very true. Echo that. Mr. Europe, the shorter chapters were more focused, which I really liked. I'd have to reread it though. I might be biased from the joy of getting constant chapters. Yep. Very true.
Yeah, we all were overfed ducks this week. We got extremely fattened up, and now we're starving once again. But it seems like that is all the discussion for this question, so I'm going to wrap it up here. And I just want to thank Ashok for helping out and being the co-host today. Hopefully in the future, Ashok will be hosting by themselves. And so,
Yeah, definitely. Thanks.
yep. So I'm going to end the recording now.